My name is Linda Mitchell. I am 65 years old and I live alone in Portland, Oregon. Last week was my birthday, and for the first time in my life, I spent it completely alone. There were no phone calls, no texts, no familiar voice on the other end of the line wishing me a happy birthday. The only sound in my house that day was the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I waited staring at my phone, hoping. Maybe hoping for a mistake, a delay, anything. But it never rang. My son didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't even send me a single word. And the truth is, I knew this was coming. Deep down, I always knew this day would arrive. I just pretended for years that it wouldn't. I am not here to tell you a story about being a victim. I'm not here to blame anyone. I'm here to admit something most mothers would never dare say out loud. This is the story of how I broke my own family. How I pushed away the very person I loved the most. And how today I am left sitting in this empty house, holding nothing but memories and regret. You see, for a long time I believed I was doing the right thing. I told myself that everything I did was out of love. Every rule I set, every choice I made for him. It was all to protect him, to give him a better future. I believed that love meant control, that love meant knowing what was best for him, even if he didn't agree. But as I sit here now looking around this quiet room, I realize something I never saw back then. Love isn't about control. It isn't about molding someone into what you think they should be. It's about seeing them, hearing them, letting them be who they are, even if it scares you, even if it's not the life you imagined for them. I didn't understand that. Not until it was too late. So if you're willing to listen, I want to share my story. Not because it's easy to tell, not because I deserve sympathy, but because maybe, just maybe, someone out there will hear this and avoid making the same mistake I did. This is how I lost my son. Looking back now, I can see how it happened. How I slowly, quietly became the kind of mother I never thought I'd be. The kind of mother who believed she knew best. Always. I wasn't born this way. Life shaped me into it. I spent nearly 30 years working in finance in a world where everything was numbers, rules, order, and control. If something didn't add up, you fixed it. If a risk was too high, you avoided it. Simple, clean, predictable. That mindset bled into my home without me even realizing. I told myself I was being responsible. I was being a good mother. And for years, I truly believed that was true. When my son Ethan was born, he was my everything. His father left when he was just 3, and from that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would give him a good life, a safe life, a successful life. But somewhere along the way, I confused love with control. I set the rules. I planned his path. I decided what was best. Because I told myself I've seen the world. I know how harsh it can be. I know what happens when people chase foolish dreams. When Ethan was 8, he started showing an interest in music. At first, I didn't think much of it. Kids pick up hobbies all the time. But then it became clear. This wasn't just a phase. He would sit for hours with his little guitar strumming the same chords again and again. His eyes would light up every time he learned something new. And instead of seeing joy, I saw danger. I told him straight. Music was fine for weekends, for fun, but it wouldn't pay bills. It wouldn't give him a future. I remember the first time he asked to go to a summer music camp. I didn't even think about it. I said no. I told him we were enrolling him in a math program instead. Something useful, something smart. He was devastated. I remember him sitting on the stairs, holding that brochure, tears pooling in his eyes. And yet all I could think at the time was, this is good for him. One day he'll understand. That became the theme of his childhood. No to music. No to theater. No to anything that didn't fit my version of success. And it didn't stop there. When Ethan was 15, he started dating a girl named Lily. She was an art student, free-spirited, messy, completely the opposite of what I imagined for him. I told him she was a distraction, that she would hold him back, that he needed to focus on his future, not waste time with someone who didn't understand responsibility. I even went as far as calling her parents, telling them it would be better if they discouraged the relationship. I thought I was protecting my son. I thought I was doing the right thing. Every choice I made came with the same line repeating in my head. I'm doing this for him. He'll thank me one day. But the truth is far uglier. Every time I said no, every time I dismissed what made him happy, every time I acted like I knew best, I wasn't building him up. I was chipping away at who he was. And the saddest part, I didn't see it. Not then. I thought I was giving him structure, stability, a future. But what I was really teaching him was how to live without me. I see it so clearly now. But back then I was blind. Blind to his feelings. Blind to his needs. Blind to the damage I was causing. If someone had asked me during those years, "Are you a good mother?" I would have said yes. Without hesitation. I was certain, absolutely certain that I was doing what was best for him. But certainty can be the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves. I didn't know it then, but every decision I made was pushing him a little further away. And by the time I realized, it was already too late. The signs were there. Looking back now, I can see them so clearly. But at the time, I brushed them off like they were nothing more than teenage mood swings. Ethan started coming home later than usual. At first, it was just a few minutes. Then it became hours. He would walk through the door with that look in his eyes. Distant. Cold. Like he had already decided he didn't want to be there. I would ask where he'd been, and he would mumble something about school or homework. But the truth always finds its way out. I found a flyer in his backpack one evening, a local music studio offering guitar lessons. My hand shook as I held it. He had signed up without telling me, behind my back. I confronted him expecting guilt, expecting him to apologize. But instead, he stood there silent, defiant. I told him this was unacceptable. That music wasn't going to put food on his table or pay his bills. I reminded him again and again that the world was hard, that dreams like that belonged to people who didn't care about their future. But it didn't stop him. If anything, it only pushed him further. He started spending more time with Lily, that same art student I had warned him about. I saw her as a distraction. Someone who would pull him away from the life I had carefully planned for him. Whenever I asked about her, he would roll his eyes or say nothing at all. The boy who once told me everything was now a stranger living in my house. Dinners became silent. Conversations were short-clipped or filled with tension. I would try to remind him how much I had done for him, how hard I had worked to give him opportunities, how everything I did was for him. But none of it seemed to matter. The more I pushed, the more he pulled away. And still, I believed I was right. I told myself this was just a phase. That one day, he would wake up, realize how foolish he was being, and come back to the path I had laid out for him. I thought I was saving him, protecting him. But the cracks were already forming. Cracks that would soon split wide open. And I never saw it coming. The silence crept in slowly. At first, it was just shorter conversations. Less laughter. Less of that easy back and forth we used to have. Then it became something heavier. Something you could feel the moment you walked into the house. Ethan would come home, barely glance my way, and head straight to his room. The door would close. And that was it. The rest of the night, I'd hear nothing but muffled guitar strings from behind the wall. I would cook dinner, set the table for two, and wait. Sometimes I called out for him. Sometimes I knocked on his door. Most nights, he wouldn't come out at all. If he did, he'd grab a plate in silence and disappear just as quickly. We had become strangers living under the same roof. And still, I told myself this was normal. Teenagers go through phases. He'd come around. He had to. I repeated the same line in my head over and over. Everything I was doing, it was for him. I was trying to protect him, trying to save him from a future full of disappointment and struggle. But deep down, there was a sinking feeling I couldn't ignore. His silence wasn't a phase. It wasn't rebellion. It was an answer. A response to years of feeling unheard, unseen. I would sit at the dinner table looking at the empty chair across from me, holding my fork, but not eating. Listening to the ticking of the clock, to the weight of words never said. Every little thing became a reminder how far apart we had grown. The sound of his door locking, the way he avoided eye contact, the stiff nods instead of good night, the mornings where he left before I even woke up. And yet, even as the house grew colder and quieter, I clung to the belief that this was temporary. That one day he'd understand. That one day he'd thank me for caring enough to push him in the right direction. But the truth was already written in the silence between us. It just took me too long to read it. I remember every second of that day, every sound, every breath, every look he gave me that felt like a door slowly closing. It started like any other argument. He came home late. Again. I was waiting in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch, hands clenched so tightly they hurt. The moment he walked in, I asked where he had been. His face didn't even flinch. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked straight past me toward his room. I followed him, demanding he talk to me, demanding answers, demanding respect. But when he turned to face me, something was different. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't defiant. They were empty, cold, like he had already made his decision. He told me he couldn't do this anymore. He said he was tired of never being heard, tired of having his dreams treated like garbage, tired of being molded into someone he was never meant to be. I told him he was being dramatic, that he was throwing away his future, that everything I had ever done was because I loved him, because I wanted what was best for him. He shook his head. His voice was flat when he told me I never listened, that I only ever loved the version of him that existed in my head, not the person standing in front of me. I felt my throat tighten. My hands trembled as I told him he was wrong, that I had sacrificed everything for him. But even as the words left my mouth, I could see how little they meant. He walked to his closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and started throwing things inside. A few shirts, a pair of jeans, his guitar. That was it. No hesitation, no second guessing. I tried to stop him. I begged him to sit down, to talk, to think about what he was doing. But he barely looked at me. His silence was louder than any words he could have said. As he zipped up his bag, I reached for his arm. He pulled away, calm, firm, like someone who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in his head. He walked toward the front door. I followed, whispering, then pleading, then finally shouting his name, telling him he was making a mistake, telling him this wasn't how families were supposed to work. He opened the door, stood there for a second. I stared at the back of his head, praying, just praying that he would turn around, that he would look at me, that he would say anything. But he didn't. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him, and just like that, he was gone. I stood there frozen, staring at that door like it might somehow open again. Like maybe, just maybe, this was all some horrible misunderstanding. But the only thing that answered me was the suffocating silence. That was the day my son walked away. And somewhere deep down, I knew he wasn't coming back. The first few weeks after he left were the hardest. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. Every vibration, every ding of a notification made me scramble across the room, hoping. Just hoping it was him. But it never was. I told myself he just needed time. Time to cool off. Time to realize that family means more than arguments. More than differences. So I called. I left voicemails, soft at first, then pleading. I sent texts. Simple ones. Just checking in. Hope you're safe. I miss you. Please call me. No reply. Holidays became unbearable. On Thanksgiving, I cooked his favorite dish and set the table for two, waiting like a fool for someone who was never coming. On Christmas, I sat by the window staring at every pair of headlights that passed, pretending one might pull into my driveway. I kept telling myself that this was temporary, that one day he would pick up, that I would hear his voice and everything could start to heal. Then one afternoon, about a year after he left, I called again. This time, there was no ring, just a cold, mechanical voice cutting through the line. This number is no longer in service. I stared at the screen, frozen, my hand gripping the phone like it was the only thing holding me upright. I called again. Same message. Over and over. Same cruel answer. The realization hit like a punch to the chest. He had changed his number. He had made sure that I couldn't reach him. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, the silence pressing in from every corner of the house. My hands trembled. My throat burned. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the air itself had turned heavy, refusing to fill my lungs. Still, some foolish part of me kept believing. Maybe he would email. Maybe he would show up one day, angry, hurt, but ready to talk. But deep down, I think I already knew. Hope was slipping away, and desperation had quietly taken its place. It happened on a random Tuesday. I wasn't searching for him, not really. I had typed his name into Google more times than I could count over the years, but it had always led nowhere. Just silence. Just empty pages. This time was different. There he was. His face, right there on the screen. A thumbnail of a YouTube video. Ethan Mitchell. Singer. Songwriter. Over 2 million views. I clicked before I even realized my hand was moving. And there he was. Sitting on a small stage, guitar in hand, pouring his heart into a song. His voice was rich, strong, filled with something I couldn't quite describe. Freedom, joy, pain, all of it. I stared at him, barely breathing. His hair was longer, his eyes softer but brighter somehow. He looked happy. Not the version of happy I had tried to create for him. His own kind of happy. As the camera panned, there was someone sitting off to the side, smiling. Lily. Her hair a little shorter now, but it was her. The same girl I had once called a mistake. The same girl I told him would ruin his future. She hadn't ruined anything. She had become his future. I found more videos, more photos, an interview where Ethan talked about his journey, about following his dreams, about walking away from things that didn't serve him anymore. I knew exactly what he meant. I was one of those things. Scrolling further, I saw a picture of them. Ethan, Lily, and a little girl. Maybe 2 years old. Big brown eyes, wild curls sitting on Ethan's shoulders, both of them laughing like the world was made just for them. My hands trembled. My throat closed. Tears blurred the screen until I couldn't see anymore. I sat there realizing something I should have known all along. He had built a life. A good life. A beautiful life. And there wasn't a single piece of it that included me. The son I tried so hard to control had learned how to live without me. And he was doing just fine. It took me 3 days to write that email. 3 days of sitting at my kitchen table, staring at a blank screen, typing, deleting, and typing again. I had no idea where to start. How do you apologize for a lifetime? I started with the truth. I told him I was sorry. Sorry for every time I dismissed his dreams. For every time I made him feel small. For every time I chose control over love. I told him I had been wrong. That I finally saw what I had done. That I never meant to hurt him, but I had. And I asked. No, I begged for a chance. A chance to talk. A chance to fix what I broke. The moment I hit send, my hands started shaking. My chest felt tight. But somewhere in that fear was the smallest flicker of hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe this would be the beginning of something better. A day passed. Then another. Then another. On the 7th day, my phone buzzed. It was an email. From Ethan. For a few seconds, all I could do was stare at his name on the screen. My fingers hovered over the notification, frozen, like opening it might somehow change what it said. I tapped. The first line read, "Thank you for the email." My eyes scanned faster, desperate for anything. Anything that sounded like forgiveness. Like softness. Like a door opening even just a crack. But then the next line hit me like a punch to the chest. But there's nothing left to fix. I stopped breathing. My hands went numb. The walls around me started to blur. I read it again. And again, hoping somehow that I misunderstood. That my eyes were lying. They weren't. Then came the line that shattered whatever was left of me. "You taught me how to live without you, Mom. And now I do." I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a dull thud, but I barely heard it. My ears were ringing. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I sat there staring at nothing. The air felt thinner. The room smaller. Like the entire house was collapsing inward. I pressed my hands to my face, but it didn't stop the flood. My body shook. My breath came in broken gasps. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and ripped something out. The silence in that moment was unbearable. Louder than any scream. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was finished. He had built a life where I didn't exist. And he was at peace with that. I thought the worst day of my life was the day he walked out that door. I was wrong. This was worse, because this was the day I realized he wasn't coming back. Not ever. I sit in this quiet house every day now. The same walls. The same furniture. Everything exactly where it has always been. And yet, it feels like a stranger's home. A place full of things, but completely empty of life. There's a photo on the mantel. Ethan at 6 years old. His hair was shorter, then his eyes wide, his smile missing a front tooth. I remember the day we took that picture. We were at the park. He was laughing so hard because he had just fallen off the swing but didn't get hurt. I told him to smile for the camera. He did. Pure, effortless, so full of joy. I stare at that photo a lot now, sometimes for hours. It's strange how a single image can hold so much. Everything. Everything I had. Everything I lost. I think back to the years when he was little, the bedtime stories, the scraped knees, the school projects spread out on the kitchen table. I was there. I was physically there for all of it. But was I really there? Did I listen? Did I hear him? Did I see him? Or was I too busy shaping him into what I thought he should be? I convinced myself that love meant pushing him to be better, smarter, safer, stronger. I told myself that rules were love, that discipline was love, that control was love. But sitting here now, I realize love was the one thing I forgot to give him. I never told him enough that I was proud of him. I never told him that it was okay to chase what made him happy. I never told him that who he was enough, more than enough. Instead, I turned every dream of his into a problem, every passion into a threat, every choice that didn't fit my plan into a fight. I see it all so clearly now. The nights when he came to me eager to show me a song he wrote or a painting Lily had made, and how I brushed it off, told him it was a waste of time, that it wouldn't matter in the real world. God, how many times did I crush that light in him without even realizing? I thought I was protecting him from the world. But what I really did was teach him to protect himself from me. I was so focused on raising the perfect son that I forgot how to simply be his mother. And now there's nothing left but this silence. A silence I created. A silence I earned. If you are listening to this and you are still lucky enough to have your children's love, don't waste it. Don't make them spend their whole lives proving they are enough. Don't wait until it's too late to say the words that matter. I would give anything for one more chance, one more conversation, one more day to tell him. I see him now. I hear him now. And I'm sorry. But that's the thing about regret. It doesn't change anything. It just sits with you. Forever. If you are listening to this right now, I need you to hear me. Truly hear me. Because what I'm about to say comes from a place I wouldn't wish on anyone. If you still have someone you love, someone who picks up the phone when you call, someone who texts you back, someone whose face still lights up when they see you, do not take that for granted. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait until the time feels right. Because one day, the time runs out. I thought I had time. I thought I would figure it out later. I thought love could wait. But it doesn't. Love needs to be spoken, needs to be shown, needs to be felt while it's still here living and breathing between you. If you are a parent, listen to your child. Not just the words, but what they are trying to tell you underneath. Their dreams, their fears, their hopes. Even when it's not what you wanted for them. Especially then. If there's tension, if there's distance, if there are words left unsaid, say them now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Apologize, even if it feels awkward, even if you're scared. Tell them you're proud. Tell them you see them. Tell them you love them. Say it so often that they never have to doubt it. Because the truth is, silence grows. It spreads. It fills the space where conversations should have been, where laughter should have been, where forgiveness should have lived. And if you're not careful, silence becomes the only thing left. So call them. Listen. Say, I love you, before silence becomes the only thing left. And if my story meant something to you, if it stirred something in your heart, please share it. Someone out there might need to hear it before it's too late for them too.